All right, a good Monday afternoon to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist John Dawson. This is your afternoon tropical update. We're here every day of hurricane season, giving you the latest on what's happening out in the tropics. And we've always got more time to discuss as opposed to in our newscasts. Our newscasts, they only give me like 2.5, sometimes 3 minutes if I'm lucky. But that's not enough time to really dive into things and talk about things. That's why we get to do that here. We get to do that now. And there is something to talk about. It's been a quiet July after a crazy start with Beryl. I'm just setting Beryl aside as a whole separate entity. But after Beryl, July really became a bit quieter in the tropics, and not really unexpected. That's pretty seasonal. That's what you'd expect to find is overall a fairly quiet July, and that's what happened. But now we're wrapping up July, moving into August, and historically speaking, we always begin to see a bit more activity, and that's certainly what we're expecting now as we're not quite, I guess, technically into August yet, but I just kind of feel like, at least the way the tropics are acting, maybe we're already there. So we're kind of moving that direction. National Hurricane Center is particularly watching an area, and it's really one of these unusual situations. Let me just start off by saying this whole tropical discussion here is kind of a mess. There's a lot going on as far as where this is headed and the different factors that'll influence if this develops into something. But even the starting point is a bit of a mess that's happening out there right now. Our X here more or less kind of represents a tropical wave that has come off or from the African coast and kind of moving its way. You can see there's really not much to look at as far as exactly where this location is, but you'll notice all this group of moisture and these sort of disturbed and these storms that are down to the south of it a little bit. Well, these are going to continue to kind of move to the west as we go through time, and they're expected to kind of merge a little bit, kind of come together. And if the rest of the conditions are favorable, then it would probably become a tropical system of some kind. At this point, looking to be more like a depression. So the National Hurricane Center right now is giving it a 50% chance. That's on that 7-day forecast or expectation. So the next 2 days, they're not looking for anything. So our line here kind of represents the next 2 days of time at least. And then by the time we get into the northeastern Caribbean islands, that's when we're beginning to see the possibility, at least, if this could develop into a tropical system. And as I mentioned, there's a lot going on there that could kind of help or hurt this from forming. First of all, just the fact that you've got a tropical system that's trying to form over these islands, that's not helpful for the tropical system whatsoever. These are mountainous type terrains and, just interaction with land. There's a lot going on that doesn't make it easy. And then you add it to the fact that we've got some Saharan dust to talk about. We've got some upper level winds that aren't very favorable necessarily. And then you've got some bigger level steering currents that are also going to try to push anything that's formed one way or another. That's also kind of fighting against it. But at this point, it does look like there's going to be enough moisture to really kind of help it a little bit. So on the positive side, meaning on the more beneficial side of it forming, it does look like there's going to be quite a bit of moisture kind of to work with overall. So that's all kind of that discussion, and that's the short story. So now we can kind of dive in and take a little bit of a better look at what's happening. First of all, the rest of the tropics are quiet. The Gulf of Mexico has been quiet for a while. In the Caribbean, we've seen quite a bit of rain, unorganized over in the western areas. Upper level winds have really made that an area that's not conducive to development. So overall, that's been a bit of a problem or not in developing. And then the Atlantic has really been dealing with that Saharan dust, and we continue to see that dust that's out there right now and just really coming off of the African coast. And so this is our forecast product. So you're really seeing as we move through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this next kind of batch of that dust as it's moving forward. You'll notice that right now there's a little bit of a gap, a little bit of a break in some of that. It would be really helpful for that this possible tropical system to be able to get in between this dust, and it would have a higher chances of development. Also kind of thrown into the picture, there's this stalled frontal boundary that's kind of a leftover that's laying here, and that has sort of kind of helped take a little bit of the steering component away from the normal high pressure ridge that sort of sits over the Atlantic. So you could kind of see that rotation here showing that high pressure ridge. And then there's this front that has helped kind of create a little bit more of an opportunity for that area, that path to form once it kind of gets going. And that's just something, again, that would be more of a steering factor if something develops, as opposed to the actual development of the system itself. And we'll see that continuing to change somewhat as we move through some time. But here, once again, is what the focus is. This orange shading is where something would develop if it does develop. And as I mentioned, a 50% chance right now from the National Hurricane Center that it would develop. It would be able to fight the odds and develop into a system. Right now, tropical depression would be more favored at this point in time. But then even once it develops, once it forms, where it goes would be something that is a whole new ball game. Really not any clarity on where it would go. So the folks out in Florida, if you're in Florida checking in right now, that's not any comfort to you whatsoever. You would really like to know where this thing is going if it were to form. We've got some of our modeling that would want to, if it's a stronger system, I'll put it that way, it will want to kind of curve up to the north a little quicker, kind of get pulled into the Atlantic somewhat. If it's a weaker system, it would probably be able to kind of limp along a little bit here and squeeze itself into the Gulf of Mexico. And then this time of the year, once you get anything in the Gulf of Mexico, that can be a concern. And then, of course, there's also just the idea, the possibility that it could kind of just roll right along more average strength and kind of end up right into Florida. Probably just a lot of rain. But again, there's so many questions. There's very low confidence in what would end up, even if there is something that ends up kind of forming. So I want to continue that discussion of that Saharan dust for just a minute. And this would just apply a little bit more to the folks here in the Southeast Texas area, in Houston with me. And that's the fact that we're getting another shot of this Saharan dust once we look into late Tuesday. And it especially kind of peaks during the day for sure on Wednesday, and that carries all the way into Thursday. So we begin to see some of this dust arriving Tuesday. I think Tuesday night's sunset will be one that you can kind of really begin to notice that a little bit more. And then much of the day Wednesday, we're looking at that hazy skies with that dust, and then that carries into Thursday somewhat.